Great. Well, thank you. And I'm going to try to share my screen appropriately. Welcome. Um, we are here today to talk through some resource use and assessment with Alice Madden from Community Power. I'm Patience Caso, the Green Partners Grant Manager, as many of you know. Um, I going through reports each year, there's always a lot to learn about how you all do your business and operations. And one of the really cool tools that I found in the Community Power report was this really cool assessment and resource use tool that Alice uses. And I'm going to let her present on that, just kind of how the tool is organized, how she uses it, different ways that she's thought about assessing criteria. And then we're going to have some discussion about different resources that you will likely use for your projects and how we can make them more green and just more socially conscious as well. So I think that'll be something cool that you'll see in the tool that Alice shares is it's not just about thinking through what's a green resource, which is super important in the work that we're all doing here, but also there's some other really important factors that help influence how green our planet is through more of a social justice lens. So with that, I think I will pass it over to introduce Alice Madden. And Alice, can you tell us what you do over at Community Power before I bring the tool up?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Patience. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sure
Okay.
can.
I'm Alice. I usually hear pronouns. I am at Community Power, and we are a Minneapolis-rooted energy democracy organization, which basically joins energy justice work with democracy work. So, how do we um, enable more and more people to have a say in how energy works, who benefits, who bears the risks, and make all of both the process and the outcomes really rooted in what community most needs. We started as the Minneapolis Energy Options campaign in 2013, 2012, and have since formed into a 501c3 organization. We're still very small and scrappy, so I'll just say um, it is a big shout out to Hennepin County's very user friendly, in my opinion, budget and reporting system that we had the bandwidth to actually like think a little bit more about how to make something like this. It was really prompted by reporting for Hennepin County that we took things out of our brains and put it onto paper. So,
Yeah, thank you. I should have put your photo on the front here. I meant to change
oh,
the
that's
photo
fine.
before we started. This is more
we don't,
easy.
we have my face right here. We don't need a photo of me.
I know, but you had a great photo of some of your participants with their plaque and solar installations
Oh,
they're
sure,
working
those
on
were
in their building too. Yeah, thanks so much for that introduction. I think, I don't know if I'm, here we go. Um,
um
yeah, I'll
And
let you
yeah,
all.
I was gonna say, patients, before we talk about this, I'm curious if people are coming to the webinar just having their own tools in mind, or if this is totally new. So maybe on a scale of 1 to 5, if people want to put in the chat, 5 is like, oh yeah, we've been doing our own process for a long time. I'm just here to learn about other people's. And 1 is like we've never done something like this. If people have access to their chat just to get a temperature check, that would be really helpful to me. Also, some informal stuff from patients. 5, okay, awesome. And I realize some people may be on their phones, so
Yeah, might be
put
harder to
another.
see.
Okay, well, feel free to keep putting those in the chat. Okay, cool. Whole range, great. Even just from 3 people so far. So keep putting them in the chat. It's very helpful to see. So, like I said, this was something that has been in my brain for a while of just thinking about how we do purchasing. And I think the county has some helpful orientation tools just in, encouraging people to really not buy single use or plastic things with Hennepin County dollars. And that really prompted um, taking some of those values and saying, how can we disclose more of this to the county and also start thinking about this more formally ourselves? And I say ourselves, we are very small, so this has been mostly in my head and is not a formal community power tool, but I think it reflects the values of my peers at Community Power. Um, so what we took from, so going from this, avoiding single-use items, more compostable things, that was a pretty easy one to just know that was already part of our values, but also an obligation or a encouragement from the county. And so when we did our final report, we also wanted to think more about, and this is some of our philosophy as Energy Democracy Organization, is where is wealth being extracted from, and where is it being built and generated, and how do we use our very small but still, more significant than an individual person's buying power as an organization that is receiving grant dollars to really invest in the local economy, which is part of our hyper local work, and also build wealth where wealth has been extracted or wealth has been purposefully excluded from accumulating. And what that's both in a, who are the identities of communities that have been extracted from, so particularly Indigenous communities and Black communities, but also what are the forms of alternatives to the corporate monopolies or functional monopolies that we see that are taking wealth and just sharing them back to investors rather than to their member owners or people in the community. So those are kind of some of the philosophies that we were bringing to this, as really excited about solidarity economies, really excited about cooperative models, knowing that those have helped communities that have been actively excluded from economic participation or economic benefits over many different geographies and a long period of time. And then of course, like thinking about how do we define green in a more specific way, because there's so much greenwashing. What does it mean to do something green, and can we flex that beyond just who's BPI certified and we know is compostable to, is this reused? Is this, are we avoiding trying to buy new stuff? And then across all of those different figures, does this check one of those boxes, so that we can feel like maybe this group isn't local, but it's really green, thinking about world centric, or maybe this group is a cooperative, but they're not owned by a Black, Indigenous, or person of color owner, or maybe this is green and BIPOC owned, but it's not small, they've gotten fairly large and is now a corporation or something like that. There's all these different permutations where it's not gonna be perfect, it's not gonna check all of these boxes in once, but those are all providing some type of value and is leaning into the world that we want to see. So this has been sort of anonymized, but this is based, just pulling out the vendors to not put anyone on a recorded spot here of who we've purchased from. But so on the left, you'll see the vendors all kind of listed, and then these different columns of local, small business, or co-op. So really recirculating dollars into the hands of, maybe workers or member owners, or just a business owner that is small and not behemoth yet. And then is it BIPOC owned? Is it green? And then is it one or multiple of those things? And then we tried to also tally, okay, did we spend like $1 buying, an extra set of used napkins or like thrifted napkins, or was this like a really large part of our budget that we spent on this? And then one thing to note, just you'll see some extra text under vendor F, G, and H. Those were kind of broken down of like, okay, if we're spending money in transportation, are we spending that on our car sharing? Are we spending that on a personal vehicle, which means that maybe those vendors are actually split into our insurance company, which in my case is really not any of those things. Is it, am I spending money on the mechanic who usually does repairs on my car? That's a small business who's right in the community. And I feel good about that, even though obviously, like, I would love to not have to own a car. and what other expenses. Parking, for example, if you're spending money on parking and that goes into a local municipality that, you know, um, is really doing a lot of important things around green green activities and has, racial equity goals and all of those things, that those could start to count for. I feel good about spending parking in a city where that's all happening. And obviously this is not about good feelings, it's about where is money flowing. So let's see, what else? I was trying to think of, there was one other piece of the car. Oh, just, if you're buying from a gas station, obviously most of that is going into the oil and gas industry, versus if you're, you know, charging your electric vehicle or our car electric vehicle, just kind of trying to be um, tracking where all of the money is flowing in that interaction of using a vehicle to transport goods and people. So that's kind of all I have to say about this one. Patience, if you don't mind scrolling down, we can see kind of a fake example. So this is just anonymized, but is a real, well, I guess, yeah, it's a real example from some of the purchasing that we did last time, but not putting anyone on the spot in terms of who the vendors were. And so you can see all the ones in that second to last column. Those ones at the top are all one or multiple of those criteria. And then the ones on the bottom were not any of them, and how much money we spent in one category or the other. So we're feeling excited that we were able to direct most of the county money that was coming into us for purchasing. Obviously, a lot of the grant resources, I think it was a $10,000 grant, was spent on labor. So that's, we didn't count that in here. But purchasing wise, we had $5,800 roughly, and about $180 that were not. I think that's all I want to say, but I think, again, this is like very beginnings of putting this on paper and out of our heads and trying to say, what do we mean by local? What do we mean by small business or co-op? What do we mean by BIPOC owned? What do we mean by green? And then that can kind of iterate and change over time as you learn more about, oh, this is actually more greenwashing than I thought, or we actually really want to say, and this is an example that I think kind of nuanced the ownership piece for us, was how do you all as an organization or as the person in charge of purchasing want to define, is it most important to support a majority worker, like where everyone who's working for that organization, or majority of folks who are working for that place that you're purchasing from are worker owners, or does it matter that the entity as a whole is a small business? So does that ownership part matter? Another one was we did some research. I'll try to make this as kind of vague as possible, but when the ownership of the organization is a corporation or someone who checks a lot of the boxes of white and upper class ownership, is that outweighing they are featuring, say, chefs, or providing really like high paying jobs, or all of those types of things? Is that like, it gets very nuanced when you're like, this is a really good place to work and is respecting their workers and also the ownership is not yet reflecting the values, or like, providing wealth back in the ownership structure. And so there's a piece of like, there's a really important value of the labor side of things, of like, how is it to work as someone there versus, who gets to own and control and decide. And those are really key questions for us as an energy democracy organization, of thinking about our energy system and saying, who gets to own and decide what type of energy we're building, versus like how affordable are the energy bills. Those are two separate questions, but are sometimes can be at odds or can be aligned with each other. So I'll just stop there. I think this is the highlights of what I wanted to share. And as you can tell, it is very in process, and was honored that Pages wanted to have us share about this, but you probably all have really cool systems that we should spend some time chatting about. So,
Yeah, thank you so much, Alice. I want to open it up for questions that people might have. I think one thing I'm hearing too is these columns can be added to. There are other things your organization might want to prioritize. And as she was mentioning, which ones kind of weigh higher for your organization and your community. I think those are really important questions, and it's not black and white because that's just not life, unfortunately. So sometimes you have to make trade-offs on some of those questions. But this is a really great tool to start from. But let me open it up. Does anybody have questions about how this is used or how it might be modified? Or have you used something maybe that you can share with us?
Um, Hi, this is Jane. I have a couple questions.
Yeah, hi,
Hi,
Jane.
good morning, Patience and Alice. Hey, so we are one of the Green Partners grantees. Are we supposed to use this form, or is this mandatory, or it's
No,
option?
this is an optional form. So this is not something that we require at Green Partners, but I thought it was such a good assessment of the green resources that Community Power was able to tap into, but also looking at these other social issues, I thought was a really unique way of looking at how you make your
Okay.
purchases and invest your money. And so
Yeah.
it's more of an encouragement to look into something like this and
Yeah,
implement it.
I'm thinking. So remember we shared what we are from. I'm from ZRAN, um, organization. We shared a link to you. Because we did some just local research to to try to find the vendors the best options for buying the food service ware. So
Yes.
we shared a link on our website. And I heard that Alice mentioned the word centric. It's actually that's a brand we tap into. And we found Costco, Costco business, location has the best price.
Yeah.
But then of course there are some other options. So this first one, the second one is we are actually working. We are not a business ourselves, but we are trying to help other business and also events to reduce the waste. So one of the things we tried last year was to kind of encourage the vendors to buy the compostable products. So those to avoid those plastic or those disposable footwear. But one thing we realized a challenge, the couple challenges. One is for business, for example, restaurants. Um, we can encourage them to buy these products. However, if they don't have organic recycling, it's actually of no use. It's actually worse. When I talk to Tim, from the Brooklyn Park, the one we borrowed the trash station, and he
Oh,
said that it's actually worse because those compost products, if they don't get a compost, instead they go to landfill, it's actually making kind of participating in those organic waste methane. They produce the methane, the anaerobic um, uh, process that goes to that, so that they produce methane. So now we cannot change our approach. We don't force or ask the vendors to they have to buy this compost products because if they don't have organic recycling, um, it has no value. It's actually increased their cost, their purchasing cost. So one thing we're trying to get our voice, we try to feedback to Helen County is hopefully there's more policy and encouragement or even mandate for the business to do organic recycling and even recycling some business, like grocery stores and restaurants, if they belong to a big complex, and the complex they don't have the recycling. They maybe do the cardboard recycling, but for those bottles, plastic or glass or metal ones, they don't recycle. They just put everything into the trash. So the purchasing is one place. We try to reduce the waste, but if they don't recycle, it's of no use, and that actually increase their cost.
Yeah, those are some really good points that you bring up, Jing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something you could add some columns to this list too about how do they manage their waste? Do they have organics recycling in their business model already? Is that something that they're doing or not doing? Because
Actually,
you're right,
our
it doesn't make
mm,
sense to invest in these
yes, if they
these
don't.
solutions that aren't actually solutions, and especially if they are somehow causing some additional problems. So that's a really good point. Some big challenges we have.
It's a big challenge. I was like, we're trying to do something to the good to the earth, and some business, not every business will listen to us.
Right.
So one is they don't have time, and they don't have money, they don't have resource. The second is even for the business, they would like to, get our help and listen to us. They
Hmm.
just say, oh, I don't know how, first is where to buy the products. Second is it's very it's not very complicated, but it adds to their work to have
Hmm.
people to do the recycling, have people to get the service set up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can somebody from Hennepin County grab the website for the business recycling program? I know you're familiar with that already, but
Mhm.
we'll share that with everybody because we do have some assistance for businesses to help navigate those tough questions. And I think something that I think of when I look at this vendor assessment, I mean, I know your work is trying to get vendors to, make some green changes in their practices, but also looking at, maybe you're spending your money elsewhere where they are investing in those types of things, that they do have the organics recycling, that they are buying compostable products, and that's where you're choosing to spend your money to support those businesses. And then,
Mhm.
with behavior change theory, they say the more that go along, eventually
Mhm.
the rest will follow. So that's
Yeah.
another way to support those green
Yeah.
businesses, and
I
then use those as models for others to say, hey, here's how this group is doing it,
yeah.
and
We we
provide
we
that
we
information.
we're trying to do that, and we're trying to kind of pick a few business to set the model. The challenge we have is if there's no mandate out there, there's no policy, everything has to be out of their own will. It's really,
Yes.
really hard. Um, because business, they are so busy. The big business owners, they have their mind and time occupied by many other operational things.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's no requirements, if it's nice to do, good to do things, it's at the bottom of the list.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And that, I'm sure some of you work in the public policy sphere in making organics recycling at least a requirement for some of our food vendors, which is great, but there's definitely more work that needs to be done on those fronts. Did you have any comments to that point, Alice, that you wanted to share?
No, I think that's a really good addition. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Because it's not easy to navigate. It's not like you just bring out the list and you're like, well, here's, vendors are easy to kind of sort through. And
Yeah.
you
I
want
mean,
to
it could be
support
a
some of
good
those local businesses too.
Yeah, and it could be, I mean, for our purposes here, it's like we're purchasing things and this is is this thing compostable or is this thing used or thrifted in some
Mhm.
fashion? And
Mhm.
when we're doing our events, we're solely responsible for making sure that those compostable things get to the compost. But
Mhm.
I think when you're buying from people, that green category could absolutely say, like, the way we define that is, they create products that are green in some fashion, define that compostable, thrifted, whatever. And then if it's a restaurant where do they have like recycling themselves, or do they encourage their, residents and people who come and use their business to educate them
Mhm.
about how that works. So, does
Yeah.
anybody else have other like questions or thoughts um about the thing? Otherwise, I think patience, you've got a next activity for everyone.
You do. Any other thoughts on that topic? Right. Well,
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
go
one
ahead.
more thing I want to add is not just business, just our personal, like individual household. We
Yes.
try to influence our friends and family and in yeah, in our community to sign up the organic waste collection, the curbside collection, because
Yes.
in our cities the charges they already charge we pay for it, but even for that it's so slow. People don't do it. They know they paid for it, but they don't call their haulers
Yeah.
um, to sign up. It's just such a hard behavior to change. Uh,
Yeah.
if you don't mandate it, I feel if you don't mandate it, a lot of people don't do it.
Great. We'll have to do maybe a webinar on behavior change strategies because that's a
Yeah.
good. What's the barrier that's in their way? It's easy to sign up online. So what is it that's holding them back? Maybe can you hold their hand and like do it with them while you're
I
talking
try
about it
to.
live?
I write articles. I write articles on people
Yeah.
to teach people how to separate sort of the trashes. But it is extra work for them. They actually need to purchase, containers, purchase
Right.
compostable bags. Although the service is paid, they still need to
Right.
pay extra
But not
effort.
but not the things to utilize it at home. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel it's like a whole society thing, including business and the individual family household. Uh,
Hmm.
and there has to be like a more like policy out there. I know people don't like being mandated. They don't like to be twist arm to do things. But for things like this, I do feel some policy. We need some policy. Just individual effort. It's just so hard, so slow.
Yeah, it only goes so far. I
Hmm.
understand. That's very valid. Well, I'm going to move us into the next section, which is discussion. So we're just going to discuss as a large group here just some green and social aspects of our purchasing and financial decisions within our organization. So we have 3 topic areas, and I'm just going to go through the slides, but then we're going to open the whiteboard with all of these questions, and you can help fill in some gaps. And I'm going to take what you all report out, put it into a nice email, and then send it out to all of our grantees so that they can learn from our discussion about how they can make decisions that are more green, that are more socially um, supportive. But we're going to talk about transportation and venues as one area. So, what green transportations are available to you? It really depends on where you're hosting things, but things can get tricky as far as having other transportation options besides individual or carpool vehicles once you get outside of the city. Um, so what venues are maybe easy to get to on public transportation? Do you have those options in your community? And then how can you incentivize people to use those green transportation options, at least to get to your events, if not, like Jing was saying, in their personal lives, like as a regular thing that they do? And then we are going to talk about green incentives and supplies. So what green incentives and supplies have you purchased or do you want to buy? Maybe for your Green Partners grants or elsewhere. What makes them green? That's kind of a big question. What actually makes something green? There's a lot of gray area there. And then are there some greener alternatives? Maybe we can share what you've purchased and maybe wondered about if there are green alternatives to something you're purchasing. Um, I'd love to have some sharing of that knowledge. And then under food and beverage, what are some sustainable or green food options um, that are available to you or have you used in the past? Why are they green and sustainable? And what other criteria do you use when you're choosing a food vendor? I think we touched on some of the issues related to food vendors. So, with those questions, I will stop sharing my screen so that we can open the whiteboard. And Mary is going to put the questions on a post-it, but I think we'll just start with transportation. Um, and it is open. Does everybody see that whiteboard on their
Yes,
screen? Okay, and I don't know how many of you have used Whiteboard before, but there on the left-hand side, there are options to add text, add sticky notes where you can type in a message. You can comment on other people's posts. If you press on the three dots, it says more tools. There's even stickers and emojis you could add to people's comments. You can probably see everybody's cursor going across the screen. Up on the top right, there is a way to unfollow people's cursors if you don't want to watch all of the cursors. If you just click on where everybody's initials are, um, there is a set of binoculars next to everybody's name, and you can remove the binoculars, and then you're not following. I don't know how to do it with everybody at once, but but you could definitely stop following people so you don't have to watch the cursors running around. But Mary is adding, did you add the questions yet, Mary? Um, at the,
I'm working on it. Sorry,
okay,
everybody. I'm a little slow, but I
Mary's
will
working
put them
on,
in blue.
okay, she's gonna work on the questions in blue. But let's see, transportation. Let me just get back to my screen. If people can just add some Post-its with your ideas for what green transportations options are available to you in your community. And then maybe if there's some venues that you would recommend in your area, not just in Minneapolis. I want to hear from across the county because sometimes it's easy to find these green food vendors and green options in Minneapolis proper, but I work in Hennepin County, so I need to find these resources across the county. And I don't always know where to go for a green food vendor or a local food vendor or just a really good caterer that, can help me kind of navigate. If they don't have everything set up exactly, how can I make this more of a green option? Um, I know a lot of libraries are accessible. It looks like we have Our Car, EV Car Share. If people are not aware of the car share program, there are two car share programs that are related, Our Car and EV. And you can actually rent those cars. They're in the city, Minneapolis and St. Paul, but you can take those out to locations outside of the Twin Cities. You can take them up north even if you wanted to for an overnight, if you weren't aware of those options. Oh my gosh, we have so many good ideas. Biking and walking, that's another thing too. You can think about maybe I don't have good public transit um, in my area, but can I maybe make it accessible by bike or encourage carpools because it's pretty easy for people to carpool. Oh my gosh, so many ideas. I am just gonna, oh wow, there's a lot here. Okay. I don't even know if I can get through it all here. Zoom meetings, yes. Reduced driving libraries are good. They usually do have public transit nearby. Park buildings are good. Neighborhood park buildings, the Little Earth Gym. Yeah, North Regional Library. I love that library. I haven't seen the new update yet though. Dial a ride. Okay, that is a good suggestion to include in meeting announcements for people who might need dial a ride services. Um, Walking, biking. Yeah, and then somebody mentions Jefferson Lines, Land to Air Express. But if you have like a tour or a field trip, maybe instead of having everybody drive their own car, you're renting a bus or a small bus or a van, and you can transport people instead of having all of those individual rides. How about ways to incentivize people to take public transit or other sources of transportation? Yeah, there are some really good spaces too to expose people to if they haven't seen them before. Okay, I am trying to like unfollow everybody, but it takes a little bit of work. Okay, so many good ideas out here. Hyper local meetings that people can walk to, especially if you're doing that community-based work. I mean, that's really the best way to do it, right? I know a couple of groups, yeah, have rented their own buses or even just carpooled in their participants' cars to get around to different venues for their field trip sites. So that's a really good idea too. We will reimburse mileage if you have people driving and carpooling with other people to field trip sites. So just make sure you're tracking your mileage. All right, well, I'm going to move on to the next question because I think we got a lot of good stuff on transportation. If I had a lot of good incentives. Let's see. Oh, gym discount. Yes. Add an employer bike walk bus discount. That is so true. I know my company, they discount public transit rides. So that is something I have already available to me. And then green incentives and supplies. So next question, over here in this blue, I'm kind of moving it around here. What green incentives and supplies have you purchased or do you want to buy? What makes them green? Are there greener alternatives to things that you've already been purchasing? I feel like, do I need to make new pages? Which one? Or can we just, can everybody move to the right? I'm not sure how to navigate the the maps here. Oh, I had a page. I don't know
Yeah,
if that
people can just
so.
scroll over to the right and get to new blank area.
Oh, okay, yeah. We could just scroll over to the right, folks. All right. So I have seen, let's see, what are people purchasing these days? Let's see. There's things like sometimes people want to use bee suits. I don't know. This is just off the top of my head, probably because it's in a picture from a presentation today. Maybe there's another group that has bee suits already, and you can just borrow theirs instead of purchasing your own. I think that reuse thing is really helpful. I love this used office supplies, whiteboards. I have furnished my entire house. All of the chairs are from reused sources, and I'm very proud of that when I look at the numbers, especially of how much I spent. We have a Facebook website too. It's Environmental Education Network. And that is a place where if you have extra stuff that you're trying to get rid of, or maybe you're trying to find some things, you can post on there and try to find stuff. I know the U of M 4-H program, they are looking for those, when you get catering and you get your food in the little plastic container, maybe it's black on the bottom and a clear kind of bubble lid on the top, that black is not recyclable. And the U of M 4-H program is looking for people to just collect those and bring them to them for their projects. So, there's a place, yeah, like the Buy Nothing type of groups that you can share what you have and what you are looking for. Yeah, prioritizing reuse over recycling, purchasing materials from salvage yards, Craigslist. Yeah, I love this, purchasing cups, plates, etc. from thrift stores. I would love it if you all purchase things from thrift stores before you bought new. I know our 5-gallon water container, I purchased my personal one and then our office one from a thrift store, and many things I've purchased from thrift stores for our work in the office too. So definitely look there. So much cheaper, and then your dollars are going to go so much further. Yeah, unused craft supplies, art supplies, home energy kits. Yeah, that's great. By the way, I have some, sorry, there are a lot of them that I have in my garage right now, but some Excel energy light bulb kits. If you are looking for some giveaways for your audience, don't purchase them. Ask me for some of these kits for free, and I can help you. I can get those delivered to you so you can distribute them. Yeah, the box fan filters, HEPA 13 purple air monitors. That is a good tip actually for meetings. If COVID is on the rise right now. Flu and other respiratory illnesses are very high. Our hospitals are stretched pretty thin right now. And I think something to just make your event a little bit more green is providing some of these filters for the air quality, and maybe asking people to bring, supplying them with masks and asking them to wear masks. Yeah, all sorts of stuff like having dustpans and buckets and little brooms to sweep up extra salt from the sidewalks. And we had an artist, I think it was last year, and she was asking, she wanted to do some art with salt water, with salt from the snow. And it was kind of the end of the season, and we had told her, hey, why don't you go and just check out some local sidewalks? I bet you could find some salt out there that you could dust up and use for your art. And sure enough, so please dust up that extra salt from the sidewalks, the extra sand that's put out there. Oh, nice. Tangletown gives away some stuff for resident and volunteers. Let's see, art scraps, buy refurbished, free geek. Yes, TC, these electronic or IT stores that are reuse, so important because e-waste is growing in number. Oh, and the U of M reuse store, you guys have a lot of really good ideas on here. I can't even see them all. Oh my gosh, this is great. This is great stuff. Axeman in St. Paul. Yes, I just drove by there and I was like, why haven't I gone into Axeman? It's right there. They have so many little random supplies. Um, let's see. What about things like tablecloths? Does anybody have like a good source for tablecloths or like tabling supplies where you've found reuse options or reused or recycled options? Okay. Hmm. Oh no. Sorry, something is happening where some folks are not able. Jing, did you get back on the whiteboard? No. Not sure why that is. I'm so sorry. If you want to put your ideas in the chat, I can add them to the whiteboard. Folding table from thrift store. Sorry, just seeing good ideas. Can you see the whiteboard, Jing? Yeah, I don't know. So sorry that's not working for you. I don't know what is up with that. If people are having ideas, you want to put them in the chat, we can share those out loud. These are great though, and I will definitely pull all of these notes out and send everybody a follow-up with all of these really wonderful ideas. Okay, yeah, somebody is typing, oh, looks like Sean, these great ideas. Maybe work together with other nonprofits to do a group purchases of items. You can probably get discounts and things. All right, so I think I'm going to move to our next topic, which is food and beverages. So what green, sustainable, local, BIPOC food options are out there that you've used that you would recommend? And what other criteria do you use, I guess, for your food purchases? All right, and I guess we should probably move way over to the right again with this new question. Oh, I gotta try to grab this good question and bring it over. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of back in the day when organics was still really new, I really enjoyed working with, I know they're not like the most accessible for everybody and they don't hit all of the other buttons. But I really liked working with French Meadow at the time because they were a vendor who would take your organic waste with them and make sure it got composted. As Ching was saying, like it's sometimes hard to find a vendor who has all of the pieces so that you're doing full circle on the waste reduction. And it was so nice to know that even their toothpicks were bamboo and were compostable. So I didn't have to worry about telling everybody this is compostable, this is recyclable, this part is trash. Everything was really thoughtfully put together, and there might be vendors that you worked with that do the same. And I see a great shout out to Sisters Camelot for catering. They do food rescue. They provide a lot of food to the community. So there's a lot of good reasons to support that organization. Shoot, I meant to grab my list of vendors that I sent over. I will say for food vendors, I do personally prioritize local businesses, BIPOC and women-owned businesses. And if they don't have the green side of things, I try to work with them to figure out how can we utilize, what you have already to make this as green as possible. So that's something that I've been able to do pretty successfully with a number of vendors. And you're always going to have a little bit of waste. Even French Meadow had plastic wrap, and Cambro coffee things with the blister packs that aren't recyclable. So no vendor is going to be probably 100% perfect, although some are more thoughtful than others. But definitely don't be afraid to have that conversation with the vendor to figure out if there's a way that you can make what they already have a little bit greener so that you can feel good about using them as a vendor for the multitude of reasons that we talked about earlier. Yeah, and some vendors automatically include tongs and plastic forks. And I cannot tell you the large basket of those that we have in our office break room. We just moved, so I'm not sure if they took all of them with us, but I always decline any plasticware, any tongs. I bring those from my office. I have a little stash that I just keep myself. So try to minimize those, and even ordering that if you have pizza for events, they have those little table tents. I know it keeps the cheese off of the box, but that's something that you can decline and request that they don't include, and then you're eliminating all of that plastic from your pizza purchase as well. Prioritizing reuse over recyclable or compostable packaging. Yes, definitely. And I've even brought coffee mugs, reusable ones that we just bring back to the office to wash to meetings. So there's definitely things that you can do either with your vendor or on your own. Maybe all they have are, throwaway coffee cups, and you just can't get around that. And you maybe even don't have the budget for purchasing compostable. Maybe gather, if you have 15 people showing up, gather 15 mugs from your house and bring them to the event with you.
Patience, we are coming up on 11:55.
You are, okay. Thank you. Yeah, and then ask people to bring their own reusables. That is a good way to do it. What about incentives to have people actually do that, though? What would cause somebody to want to actually bring their own mug and not just show up and hope for a cup? What if the vendors gave discounts? You bring your own mug. Maybe the vendor doesn't have to worry about purchasing compostable cups at all. They just provide a 10% discount for every beverage purchase at their stand. That might be a way to kind of work around the vendor having to make that purchase and having to compost the compostable cup, reducing waste for everybody and saving a little bit of money for the people who participate. Yeah, and it looks like somebody has a whole kit of cups, plates. We do have the same. I have a couple of boxes at the office. I know our solid waste staff, they have reusable, washable plates too that they use, but we're coming up on time, so I want to respect everybody's time. I love the ideas. Keep them coming. If you have more that you want to send to me separately, please do, and I will collect all of these great ideas and report back. Right now, we have a couple of campaigns, and I know I'm going to be missing things. I meant to look for the whole big list, but we have the plastic-free challenge happening right now. I don't know if anybody from the county can throw that link in the chat. Community recycling ambassadors, you can sign up for that training program too. If waste is something that you're really passionate about, that's a great program to participate in. Oh yeah, and Jing says encouraging people to bring containers to restaurants. I think there are laws now where you can bring your own containers and they can instead of using their own to-go containers, you can use your own. And then the Green Partners grant applications, we are working on those right now. I believe by the beginning of March, we will have our next grant round published and ready for applications to be received. Sometime before Earth Day, we'll keep you posted on that. As I mentioned, we'll have another webinar in the spring about grant reporting for grantees, and those reports are due September 30th. So if you need help navigating reporting, let Mary or I know. But I wanted to thank Alice Madden so much for joining us from Community Power today and sharing that wonderful resource assessment tool. I know in these trying times, it's been really awesome to be able to have something like that to think through, like in my business life, but also in my personal life. So thanks so much for sharing that. And for all of you, also for all of your great ideas and participation in today's meeting. We will share the video on the website if you wanted to go back and look at ideas, but keep an eye out for an email from me. And I'm so sorry if I've missed some people's comments in the chat. It's hard to keep up on everything, but have a wonderful, the climate action plan and toolkit. How can people give feedback on that? That is a good question. I'm not sure I know exactly what I bet we have a website. That's a good question, Sean. I don't work for the climate department, so I don't know exactly how they're taking input or what they're taking input on right now. But
There
Sally
were a bunch
Bauer,
of neighborhoods that were part of it for this countywide strategic energy action plan and resource guide. But it's like we need to talk a bit more to make sure it's answering questions like which incentives for housing energy is still working, like is our tax credit still going or not? And anyway,
yeah.
we can try to, there's Sally is now working with over there with Mauricio, and we should get everybody involved with the thing.
Yeah, we usually do publish cross-publish stories from climate and resiliency in our e-newsletters. So if you're not signed up for the environmental education news, you should sign up for that on our website, on the Green Partners website. It's right at the bottom of the page. Thanks for the plug, Sean. He's always keeping up on what's going on in the county.
Hey, Patience, I have a quick question. So
Sure.
the Green Partner, is there gonna be a grant application for next year? I haven't seen it.
Yes, that's what I'm working on right now. We're hoping to publish that at the beginning of March.
Oh, okay.
So I will definitely send that out when we get it live. But we're working on kind of finishing touches right now and getting approvals.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your week, and thanks so much for participating today.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Patience.
Thank you, Patience.
Bye.
Make sure to send the
Bye-bye.
chat thing here.
I sorry, I have